And
Mr. Little, you told an 11-year-old you needed a DNA test?
Yes, I did.
And your mother revealed to you that your dad was not your biological father. Mr. Little was your father, yet claim he's denied you ever since. 100% certain you are not her father. You argue that you told Mr. Little he was your daughter's father, yet he has rejected her ever since.
well, I was about 9 years old. Me and all my siblings was in the living room, we was discussing fathers. And that's when my mom told me who I believe was my biological father. 11 years old, I got his number off a family member that's married to his family member. And I told him who I was, who my mother was, and what I believed. And he told me that he don't know, he need a DNA test, he don't think so.
She called my house. My wife answered the phone. I didn't know who she was. She said she's Mr. Gree's daughter. You might be my father. I don't know who she is. I was like, no, I didn't know who she was. This is my first time seeing her. I ain't know nothing about her.
And so
This court case unfolds as a deeply layered exploration of family, denial, responsibility, and the fragile relationship between law and justice. Before Judge Lauren Lake, the courtroom becomes a space where long-suppressed emotions finally surface, and where legal procedure intersects with human pain in ways no one can control. At the center of the first case is a young woman who enters court seeking clarity about her identity. For most of her childhood, she believed one man was her father, until a revelation at the age of 9 changed her entire understanding of herself. From that moment onward, uncertainty followed her into adolescence and adulthood. Her presence in court is not about revenge or financial gain. It is about closure. She wants to know the truth, no matter how painful it may be. Opposite her stands the man her mother identified as her biological father. He arrives defensive, firm in his belief that he cannot be the father. He leans heavily on timelines, personal calendars, and what he considers evidence, treating the courtroom almost like an evidence stage in a divorce case, where dates and details become tools of survival. His resistance highlights a recurring theme often discussed on platforms like the Game Changing Attorney podcast: how people cling to selective facts when the emotional cost of truth feels too high. The mother, also present in court, carries her own burden. She admits to past decisions that contributed to years of confusion. Her testimony reveals how fear, survival, and unstable relationships can lead to choices that affect children for a lifetime. Judge Lauren Lake carefully navigates her questioning, reminding everyone that while the law demands clarity, it also requires accountability. This moment reflects the broader concept of justice in jurisprudence, where responsibility extends beyond legal definitions into moral obligation. As testimony continues, it becomes clear that this case is not just about paternity, it is about the consequences of avoidance. The man admits that when the child first reached out years earlier, he demanded a DNA test but never followed through in a meaningful way. The court examines whether this inaction could be seen as an adverse inference in Evidence Act terms. When someone avoids proof, the law may question why. Judge Lauren Lake presses this point firmly, emphasizing that responsibility cannot be delayed indefinitely without consequences. Family members take the stand, adding emotional depth to the case. A sibling describes stepping into a protective role, filling a void left by uncertainty. Their testimony echoes themes commonly found in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where individuals speak not only about trauma, but about resilience formed in its aftermath. These voices shift the courtroom atmosphere from confrontation to reflection. When the DNA results are finally introduced, the energy in the room changes instantly. Silence replaces argument. This is the moment everyone has been waiting for and fearing. The DNA test confirms paternity, dismantling years of denial in a single sentence. The man, visibly shaken, struggles to reconcile his past certainty with the undeniable truth. His reaction mirrors countless DNA test cheating stories, where individuals are forced to confront realities they spent years avoiding. Judge Lauren Lake does not allow the moment to end with shock alone. She reframes the result as a starting point rather than an ending. The law has spoken, but now comes the harder part: rebuilding trust. The court discusses future responsibilities, including emotional presence and potential child support, reminding all parties that legal truth carries ongoing obligations. This reinforces the real-world implications often discussed in Supreme Court child support debates, how rulings extend far beyond the courtroom walls. The second case continues the theme of uncertainty, but introduces a different dynamic. A man appears in court claiming he has never met the child he believes is his daughter. His frustration is clear, rooted in years of blocked communication and unanswered questions. The mother, confident in her position, insists another man is the child's father and questions why this case is even happening now. Judge Lauren Lake carefully dissects their relationship history. Timelines, intimacy, and overlapping relationships are examined in detail. The court confronts issues frequently analyzed on platforms like the Divorce Course podcast, where emotional decisions made during unstable relationships later resurface as legal conflicts. The judge highlights how avoidance and silence can be just as damaging as deception. Witnesses and photographic evidence are presented, but once again, none of it carries the weight of scientific truth. The courtroom is reminded, explicitly, that opinions, beliefs, and assumptions are not evidence. Only a DNA test can resolve the dispute. This moment reinforces the essential relationship between law and justice, where fairness depends on objective proof rather than personal conviction. When the results are revealed, the truth once again overturns expectations. The man is confirmed as the biological father. The mother's reaction is immediate and emotional, marked by regret rather than denial. She acknowledges the years lost and the impact her decisions had on her child. This moment captures why people often regret taking truth lightly, because once revealed, it cannot be undone. Judge Lauren Lake closes this portion of the court session with a message that resonates beyond the case itself. She emphasizes that justice is not about punishment but responsibility. The law can determine facts, but healing requires effort from every person involved. These cases stand as real-life full episodes of human conflict, reminding viewers that adoption stories, paternity disputes, and family breakdowns all share a common thread. Children deserve honesty. This courtroom is not just a place where verdicts are read. It is where lives shift direction. The DNA envelopes may be sealed, but the consequences are just beginning. In these cases, truth does not simply answer questions, it reshapes futures. As the courtroom proceedings continue, Judge Lauren Lake deliberately slows the pace, allowing each party to fully absorb the weight of what has been revealed. This is no longer just a matter of determining biological ties. It becomes a lesson in how the legal system confronts human avoidance, emotional shortcuts, and the long-term consequences of unresolved truth. The courtroom atmosphere reflects a central reality often discussed in legal analysis platforms and podcast culture alike. Truth changes everything, whether people are ready for it or not. Judge Lauren Lake emphasizes that a DNA test is not simply a scientific formality. It is a legal instrument capable of reshaping responsibility. She reminds the court that while emotions can explain behavior, they cannot override facts. This distinction reinforces the relationship between law and justice, where the law provides structure, but justice demands accountability. The judge's tone remains firm but compassionate, recognizing that everyone present is grappling with a truth they did not fully prepare for. The conversation turns toward regret. The confirmed father admits that fear and pride influenced his earlier refusal to engage. He acknowledges that demanding proof while simultaneously avoiding it created years of distance. This moment mirrors a common theme explored in discussions about adverse inference in Evidence Act principles. When a person avoids verification, the law may question the motive behind that avoidance. Judge Lauren Lake points out that justice is delayed not only by legal obstacles, but by personal resistance. Attention then shifts to the emotional toll carried by the child, now an adult. She explains how identity confusion shaped her relationships, her trust, and her sense of belonging. Her words reflect realities frequently shared in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where healing begins only after painful honesty. The courtroom listens as she describes how unanswered questions can quietly dictate life choices, influencing confidence, attachment, and emotional safety. Judge Lauren Lake reinforces that courts do not exist merely to assign blame. Instead, they exist to bring clarity where chaos has lived for too long. This philosophy echoes the concept of justice in jurisprudence, where fairness is measured not just by outcomes, but by whether truth is allowed to surface fully. She reminds the confirmed father that responsibility does not begin and end with acknowledgement. It continues through action, presence, and consistency. The legal discussion naturally moves toward future obligations. While financial responsibility is addressed, the judge makes it clear that child support alone cannot compensate for emotional absence. This perspective aligns with broader debates often associated with Supreme Court child support rulings, where courts increasingly recognize that parental duty extends beyond monetary support. The judge urges both parties to approach the next chapter with maturity rather than resentment. As the courtroom transitions fully into the second case, a similar pattern emerges, but with different emotional textures. Here, a man seeks recognition after years of exclusion, convinced that a child he has never met is biologically his. His testimony reflects desperation rather than denial. He describes repeated attempts to establish contact, blocked communication, and unanswered requests for clarity. His frustration highlights how uncertainty can feel like punishment when truth is withheld. The mother, in contrast, presents herself as confident and resolved. She insists that another man has filled the father role and questions the relevance of reopening the past. Judge Lauren Lake challenges this position carefully, asking whether certainty is based on proof or assumption. This line of questioning reflects legal principles frequently discussed on platforms like the Game-Changing Attorney podcast, where belief without evidence is often exposed as legally fragile. Judge Lauren Lake examines timelines with precision, reconstructing relationship overlaps and windows of conception. The courtroom observes how personal narratives begin to fracture under objective analysis. This process demonstrates the evidence stage in divorce case logic applied in paternity court. Facts are isolated from emotion to determine responsibility. The judge stresses that truth cannot be negotiated or reshaped to fit comfort. Witness testimony adds further complexity. A partner of the alleged father explains how unresolved paternity questions affected their own family dynamic. This testimony reinforces how uncertainty spreads beyond the individuals directly involved, impacting new relationships and children born into unresolved histories. Such moments echo themes found in adoption stories, where unanswered origins ripple across generations. As photographic comparisons and anecdotal observations are introduced, Judge Lauren Lake redirects the court's focus. She reminds everyone that resemblance is not evidence. The law does not operate on facial similarities or emotional conviction. Only verified results matter. This distinction underscores why so many DNA test cheating stories end in shock, because belief often replaces verification until the moment truth intervenes. The atmosphere grows heavier as the DNA results approach. The judge pauses deliberately, allowing tension to settle. This silence reflects a universal moment in courtrooms everywhere, where speculation ends and certainty begins. When the results confirm paternity, the emotional shift is immediate and undeniable. Relief, regret, and guilt collide in real time. The confirmed father expresses sorrow for the years lost, acknowledging that belief without action cost him irreplaceable time. The mother, visibly shaken, admits that fear and denial influenced her decisions. Her reflection illustrates why many people later regret taking truth lightly, because once revealed, it exposes the weight of choices made in ignorance or avoidance. Judge Lauren Lake addresses both parties directly, emphasizing that acknowledgement alone is insufficient. She stresses that the child's best interest must now guide every decision. This moment reflects the judge's consistent approach throughout the proceedings. The law provides answers, but people must provide effort. The courtroom becomes a place not just of rulings, but of reckoning. The judge also highlights how modern courts increasingly rely on science to resolve disputes that once lingered unresolved for generations. DNA testing, she explains, protects children from living entire lives inside unanswered questions. This aligns with evolving legal philosophies often discussed in full episodes of legal analysis and family court programming, where certainty is viewed as a form of protection rather than intrusion. As this portion of the proceedings concludes, Judge Lauren Lake reiterates a central lesson. Justice is not delayed by truth, but by resistance to it. She reminds everyone that while court can reveal facts, healing depends on willingness to accept responsibility. The courtroom does not erase the past, but it clarifies the future. These cases collectively illustrate how paternity disputes are rarely about biology alone. They are about trust, accountability, and the courage to face reality. In every exchange, the court exposes how silence can be just as damaging as dishonesty. And as each DNA envelope is opened, it becomes clear that the law's most powerful role is not punishment, but revelation. As the court session moves toward its conclusion, Judge Lauren Lake brings the focus back to the broader meaning of what has unfolded. By this point, the courtroom has witnessed more than the confirmation of biological facts. It has seen the emotional cost of delay, denial, and miscommunication. These cases reveal how unresolved questions quietly shape lives, sometimes for decades, until the law is finally asked to intervene. Judge Lauren Lake reminds everyone present that paternity court is not about humiliation or victory. It is about clarity. The legal system exists to resolve uncertainty when personal relationships fail to do so. This idea sits at the core of the relationship between law and justice, where justice is not simply the enforcement of rules, but the restoration of truth. Throughout the proceedings, the judge consistently emphasizes that facts are neutral. It is human behavior that determines whether truth becomes healing or harm. The confirmed fathers in both cases are now faced with a reality that cannot be reversed. Judge Lauren Lake addresses them directly, making it clear that acknowledgement is only the first step. Responsibility follows truth, and responsibility requires consistency. She explains that many people fear DNA testing because they sense that once the truth is known, excuses lose their power. This is why, in many situations, people later admit they regret taking truth lightly or avoiding it altogether. The courtroom discussion expands beyond the immediate cases, touching on a universal issue: how children are often the silent victims of adult uncertainty. Judge Lauren Lake highlights that children grow up internalizing unanswered questions, shaping their sense of self around gaps in knowledge. This observation reflects principles often discussed in adoption stories, where identity questions persist even in loving environments. The judge makes it clear that while the law cannot restore lost time, it can prevent further damage by ending uncertainty. Attention briefly returns to legal mechanics. Judge Lauren Lake explains that courts rely on evidence, not assumptions, and that DNA testing remains one of the most definitive tools available. She reinforces how failure to pursue testing in the past can raise questions under legal standards similar to adverse inference in Evidence Act reasoning. When someone avoids proof, the law is permitted to question intent. This explanation serves as both a legal lesson and a warning for future litigants. The emotional tone shifts as the court discusses next steps. Co-parenting, boundaries, and communication are addressed not as abstract ideas, but as real responsibilities that begin immediately. Judge Lauren Lake stresses that financial support, including child support, is only one aspect of accountability. Emotional presence, respect, and consistency matter just as much. This aligns with evolving interpretations seen in Supreme Court child support considerations, where courts increasingly recognize the long-term impact of parental involvement beyond payments. The judge also addresses the mothers directly, acknowledging their vulnerability while holding them accountable for the choices that contributed to years of uncertainty. She explains that fear of conflict, loss, or judgment often leads people to delay truth, but delay does not protect children, it isolates them. This moment resonates strongly with themes found in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where individuals confront how avoidance, even when rooted in fear, can cause unintended harm. As the session nears its end, Judge Lauren Lake reflects on how modern courts balance compassion with clarity. She notes that the law is not designed to erase mistakes, but to prevent them from continuing unchecked. In both cases, the DNA results did not create the problem, they revealed it. This distinction underscores a recurring message. Truth changes everything, but it also creates the opportunity for change. The judge emphasizes that many of these cases resemble situations often discussed in legal media and educational platforms, including the Divorce Course podcast and the Game Changing Attorney podcast, where unresolved relationships later resurface as legal disputes. She cautions that avoiding difficult conversations today often guarantees more painful consequences tomorrow. The courtroom, she reminds them, should be the last resort, not the first place where truth is spoken. One of the most powerful moments comes when Judge Lauren Lake addresses the children involved, even when they are not physically present. She speaks about their right to know where they come from, their right to stability, and their right to honesty. These principles lie at the heart of the concept of justice in jurisprudence, where justice is measured not only by fairness between adults, but by protection of those with the least power. The courtroom atmosphere softens as the parties begin to acknowledge what lies ahead. Regret is openly expressed, but Judge Lauren Lake redirects the focus toward responsibility rather than guilt. She explains that guilt looks backward, while responsibility looks forward. The law has done its part by establishing truth. Now it is up to the individuals involved to decide how that truth will shape the future. Judge Lauren Lake closes by reinforcing a final lesson. DNA testing is not about proving someone wrong. It is about giving everyone the same starting point. Without truth, there can be no genuine reconciliation, no informed decisions, and no lasting peace. This is why so many paternity cases end not with celebration, but with reflection. The answers may come in an envelope, but their impact unfolds over a lifetime. As the court adjourns, it becomes clear that these proceedings represent more than isolated disputes. They are full episodes of real life, where law intersects with emotion, and justice is measured not only by verdicts, but by accountability. The courtroom may close, but the responsibility it establishes remains. In the end, these cases stand as a reminder that truth, once revealed, demands action. Avoidance delays justice. Denial compounds harm. And while the law cannot rewrite the past, it can illuminate the path forward, one decision, one responsibility, and one honest answer at a time.